This is a rare story. A tick bite led to a diagnosis of a very rare and severe disease for one 3-year-old boy from Pennsylvania. 3-year-old Jamie Simoson was swimming in a pool in June when his mother noticed a tick on his shoulder, and she easily removed it. 2 weeks later, though, Jonny started complaining of a headache, and he was very lethargic. A trip to the ER turned into days of testing. 2 weeks in the hospital. A spinal tap showed inflammation. He was initially treated for bacterial and viral meningitis until that was ruled out. He was transferred to a children's hospital where doctors did an MRI. The diagnosis was meningoencephalitis, an infection of the brain and thin tissue, caused by Powassan virus, a rare and dangerous tick-borne disease. So rare that there have been less than 200 cases reported nationwide over the past 10 years. There are currently no treatments or medication, but Jonny slowly began to improve somehow.
Where are you going?
He was released 12 days later, but was still having trouble with his speech and walking. With continued therapy, he is now doing much better. Well enough to be on Good Day Philadelphia. Jonny is here. His mom is here as well. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. And Dr. Jennifer Vodzak is also here, pediatric infectious disease doctor. Thank you all. How's Jonny doing, Mom?
Oh, Jonny's doing great. He's, as you can see, recovering very well. He's, back to his happy-go-lucky self. We're still working with speech and occupational therapy, but he was actually just released from physical therapy last week, so we are celebrating.
So, well, he certainly is active, but that had to be scary, Jamie.
Oh, it was incredibly scary. Probably one of the scariest things we've ever been through in our entire lives.
Yeah.
What's wrong, buddy? Come here.
What is Jonny into? What's he like to play with?
Oh, so Jonny loves any outdoor activity. So, if it involves a ball, he is there. Definitely something that he enjoys. Swimming, obviously, is awesome. So that's kind of what he likes to do. And he's back to doing all of those things right now, which is incredibly encouraging.
Outdoors, Pennsylvania, that's where the ticks are. Now, is that going to be a constant worry for you? You're going to be examining him every other minute?
We typically do that anyway.
Yeah.
Because we live in a woodsy area, that's, part of our nightly or routine when we come in from playing outdoors. And everyone asks, are you very worried that this could happen again, etc.? And not necessarily. We're doing everything we can to prevent ticks, in general. So, we're confident that, as we, kind of continue, things will be okay.
Well, doctor, what the heck was this? It's some kind of encephalitis. Am I saying that word right? Meningo?
You got it, Mike. It's meningoencephalitis, and it's an infection or inflammation around the brain and in the brain. And in Jonny's case, it was caused by this virus called Powassan virus that's carried by one of the ticks that are pretty common in Pennsylvania called the deer tick.
Well, if it's fairly common, thank God we don't have many cases. I said 200 over a 10-year stretch. Is this something we should be concerned with, doctor?
Well, it's a good question. The ticks are very common in Pennsylvania, but the good news is that most of the ticks don't actually carry this virus. And so even if you do get a tick bite, the likelihood that you would get this virus is still very, very low in Pennsylvania. So It's something to be aware of, but it's not something necessarily to, cancel your summer plans. But just as Jamie said, be really cautious and careful about ticks.
Sometimes we have segments about Lyme disease and they, on your skin, look for the bullseye on your skin. For what Jonny had, were there warning signs like a bullseye?
No, the bullseye is fairly unique to Lyme, and it is a signal that you do have an infection, and that can be treated with antibiotics, unlike Powassan, which really doesn't give you a sign until you actually start to have symptoms.
Oh, God.
And those symptoms might happen somewhere between maybe a few days to a few weeks, up to maybe 3 to 4 weeks after that tick bite happens.
Yeah, we're looking at some of the headache, vomiting, weakness, confusion, fever. Right. And sometimes you lose the ability to even walk. Is that true?
Yeah, so when it's really this meningoencephalitis, because the brain is inflamed, you start to have some of those neurologic kinds of findings, and sometimes that can impair your speech or your ability to be sort of awake and alert, and perhaps even motor things like walking.
Yeah. Did Jonny go through that? Jamie?
He did, yes, absolutely. When Jonny was in the hospital, he was pretty much unresponsive for about 5 days. And when he did start to become more alert, we had to help him, kind of eat again, sit up, and then, like I said, or like the story said, when he came home from the hospital, he still was not walking on his own. So it was like a
Mom.
Hands on deck. Yeah, Mom. He's looking at our Disney. The kid's obsessed with Disney World, so we had to, yeah.
So was there any medication or treatment, doctor?
No, there's no medicine that can treat Powassan. Jonny did receive a couple of different things in the hospital as sort of supportive care, and also some treatments until we knew the diagnosis. Sometimes we have to treat for a couple of things at the same time, until we sort of are able to establish that diagnosis. And the testing for this Powassan virus can take days to even up to 2 weeks to return, and so it's sometimes you don't know it right away in that time frame when patients can hopefully start to improve, just like Jonny.
Good info there, doctor. Jamie, do you feel sometimes like 200 cases over 10 years? Why me? Why my family?
Right? Why couldn't we win the Mega Millions instead, right? I think our chances were better.
Well, I'm glad to hear Jonny and see that he's so active now. Thank you to all of you.